Alright, so we need to talk about the release for Cyberpunk 2077's Phantom Liberty expansion, as the anticipation for the release date reveal is starting to heat up, and with it, there has been, of course, what some refer to as leaks and rumors. But there is one that I want to mainly focus on today, and that's comments made by Polish podcasters Rock and Boris. The latter of which was actually extended an invitation by CDPR to attend Summer Game Fest this year, and let's just say he had a lot of interesting things to say during one of their recent podcast episodes titled Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty in June, in which they discussed just that. According to Boris's connections, he has raised expectations for the release to be sometime in June or July at the latest, referring to both claims of second-hand insider information and hints from internal contacts at CD Projekt. And during all this, he even suggested it could be as early as June 8th, which would be the same day of the Summer Game Fest event, which, reminder, he was invited to. Now, the reason why I want to discuss this is to actually temper expectations, as a lot of people are taking this as confirmation of a release window, some even coming up with reasons as to why a shadow drop on June 8th would make a ton of sense. And while I do think it's likely that the expansion will be releasing this year, as CD Projekt has even said that they're fully focused on, I don't think it will be shadow dropping, and likely won't be in June or even July either. Unless, of course, things have changed internally and they're intentionally misleading with their announcements. Now, the things he discussed as supporting evidence for a short announcement to release window make a ton of sense. We know Red 2.0 has been making some major changes to the way that CD Projekt has ran as a whole. The end of this year is jam-packed with massive releases from August to the end of the year, and it has been a long time since the initial reveal trailer, which was released all the way back on September 6th, 2022. So over 8 months ago. But despite all that, Phantom Liberty has to compete no matter where it lands this year. We've got Diablo 4 and Street Fighter 6 in June, Armored Core 6 in August, and Starfield in September. Spider-Man 2 is also releasing by the end of the year with no date as of yet, but that's expected to be announced at the PlayStation Showcase. And all these are just the ones that we know about, as I do know that we will be seeing a number of release date reveals and new game announcements for titles releasing before the end of this year, and it's going to be quite loaded from a lot of publishers. And if I'm honest, CD Projekt's statements lead me to believe that the release won't actually be shortly after the Summer Game Fest event, and we'll instead be seeing something entirely different. As they previously stated that their marketing campaign for Phantom Liberty would be starting in June, that being beginning with Summer Game Fest. They're an official partner this year at Summer Game Fest, and they even announced that at Summer Game Fest Play Days, they will have hands-on sessions for press and content creators, and that they're also planning plenty of hands-on opportunities for the community at a later date. They even clarified when asked what that meant for the community by saying, meaning our community will also get a chance to play the game, that being Phantom Liberty, before the release. So that right there confirms it won't be shadow dropped at the event, nor will it be released shortly after. As to whether that means future in-person events or they'll have some form of demos planned, we'll have to wait and see, but it's important to emphasize that it won't be shadow dropping and won't be coming out shortly after the event either. Now, one desperate enough could claim that this is all an elaborate trick by CD Projekt, but I don't think that they'd be bringing out press and content creators to play it in person at the event if they're going to be releasing it the same day anyways. That's just pulling the people that are going to be talking about your game away from being able to do so, and it's not really a smart marketing decision. Now, it's not all bad news, as what I do think could be shadow dropping during or following the event is patch 1.7. That being the next and likely final major update for the game before Phantom Liberty releases. And unless things have changed, Peter Neilowich responded to an investor back in March about whether they planned to update Cyberpunk in the style of patch 1.6 before the DLC release, in which he responded with yes. Now, you could twist that in a number of ways, but the question is talking about a major feature update, which we haven't received since patch 1.6. That being back in September of last year. Now, some of you might be tempted to point at the path tracing update and say that it fits the definition, and that might be right, but that update only included high-end PC features, that being the path tracing overdrive mode, DLAA, Intel XeSS, and benchmark improvements. And path tracing was only added as a technical preview in collaboration with NVIDIA, and it added no major features to the game itself, so I just don't think that aligns with the criteria of another major feature update like that of patch 1.6, especially considering it was even deemed an incremental update, with it being patch 1.62. Speaking of the path tracing though, I do want to note that there are some rumors of some performance optimizations coming with the support of neural Radiance caching, which would likely come alongside their previous confirmation that they were working on OMM implementation, which is also known as Opacity micromaps. So path tracing will hopefully not be so hard to run in the future. Now, during that Night City wire where they showcased and shadow dropped the patch 1.6 alongside the teaser of Phantom Liberty, they also discussed many other updates they were working on for the game, of which consisted of vehicle-to-vehicle combat, revamping the NCPD cop system with changes to max tac emphasized, a new gameplay loop for Melee, all new actions in the perk tree, and more cyberware feeling cyberware, whatever that means. Of course, some or even all of these could be included in the update that brings the expansion. But based on CD Projekt's own admission that another major feature update is coming first, the likelihood that the expansion is still a few months away, and the details they gave all the way back in September last year that made these new overhauls sound more distant from the announcement of Phantom Liberty itself, I'd say what we'll be seeing at the event isn't just another look at Phantom Liberty, but also a look at these many features, some or maybe even most of which will be releasing in a patch 1.7 before the expansion's release. I know that some have tried to tell you that patch 1.6 was the last major update for the game, but that has never been stated or even suggested by CD Projekt, neither publicly or internally. That being said, it was the final update for last-gen consoles, which, as you can imagine, likely wouldn't run some of these new features very well anyways. Of course, this is just based off of the information that I have. Maybe Boris has more internal information than he's leading on, but he did claim otherwise in the podcast. And again, I could be completely wrong here, but I just wanted to make this video to temper expectations, as a lot of people seem to be immediately jumping on board with the idea of a June release date or even a shadow drop on June 8th. And while I hate being the bearer of bad news, I just don't want to see a lot of people getting their hopes up and being very disappointed. CD Projekt has been very careful with their projects following Cyberpunk 2077's launch, and for good reason, refusing to give a release date for Phantom Liberty, moving to Unreal Engine 5 to avoid their own engine issues, expanding to give them more breathing room with their move to parallel development on their IPs, outsourcing projects with trusted teams, and even rebooting Project Sirius, that being their Witcher multiplayer game developed by Molasses Flood, after reevaluating the scope and commercial potential, which has unfortunately resulted in them having to lay off 29 employees after the changes to the project. So what I'm trying to say is we won't know their release plans until they officially reveal them, as they are avoiding giving out release dates until they're truly ready this time, as they should with their past fumblings. That being said, I'd say a Phantom Liberty release date is the one thing safe to expect from the events if it is indeed locked in for this year. But we'll find out if that's the case during Summer Game Fest, which I will indeed be covering here on the channel day one. CD Projekt is also doing their Q1 2023 earnings on May 29th, so if any interesting information comes out of that, I'll be sure to cover it as well. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, I'd truly appreciate if you left a like, as it helps me with my overlord, the algorithm. And if you happen to like Cyberpunk, Skyrim, Fallout, mods, or anything of the sort, and you're not already subscribed, I'd love to have you stick around. Either way, thanks as always for watching, and until next time, this is Apoqsi, signing off.